What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. We took a couple days off after Saturday. Super necessary for multiple reasons, but we are back. We'll probably be here for the rest of the week through Saturday, so look forward to that. We have a 10-gamer here tonight. That's not too bad. Once you start getting over 10, it gets a little bit rough. But, you know, we don't have the Sharks on this slate. We don't have the Leafs. We don't have the Oilers. So, yeah, shout out to ER Doc. But joining me to break it down, Slim Cliffy. What's going on? How you feeling?
Yeah, not too bad. Saturday night was a tough one. Unfortunately, we do have the Oilers on this slate. They're in Dallas here tonight.
I forgot about them already.
I mean, I wish I could. That'll be an interesting game. There is, I think we said this on Saturday. This is even worse. There is a ton of news on this slate. There are a lot of injuries, illnesses, guys coming back, lineup changes. So we're going to make sure to go through that one by one. But it's also, it's something else we mentioned on Saturday. It's why we say always check the Discord before lock. Who knows what else will change, because there have been some significant changes to very important lines and power play formations. So we'll get through those one by one, but fairly interesting slate here ahead of us. There is one super chalk spot, and then everything else is pretty wide open. So if you don't want to play the super chalk, you're pretty much free to roam wherever you want, and I kind of dig that.
Yeah, and it's not super chalk Islanders, and it's not super chalk Nashville, which is an easy fade. This is more of a little bit more difficult fade, but we'll talk about it when we get there. Let's get into the first game here. Utah Mammoth with a 3.4 total heading into Buffalo. The Sabres have a 3 total. Utah going Keller, Schmaltz, Hayton, Genther, Cooley, Peterka, Krause, Carcone, McBain. Jason Zucker onto the IR with an illness. Hand, foot, and mouth is apparently going through NHL locker rooms, which is not as weird as mumps, but it's up there. So Buffalo's going Thompson, Quinn, Greenway, Tuck, Doan, McLeod, Krebs, Ostland, Isaac, Rosen. The only reason I mention that is because Rosen's on the top power play unit at min price. This is the first time Peterka's in Buffalo. This is the first time Kesselring and drawing a blank, Josh Doan are playing Utah. So if you live on narrative or revenge street, this game is for you. I do happen to like this game anyway, revenge narratives aside. I'll start on the Utah side. There's obviously 2 playable lines here. I don't think anything really worries me coming back from Buffalo's way. Like McLeod, Tuck, Doan has been their best offensive line, mainly because they've been the only one together for the season, but they're not great defensively. You know, maybe Tage with Greenway is fine, but they'd probably be more fine with Kulik in center and not Jack Quinn on the wing. So, I'm not overly concerned with any of that. So if you want to go to, Hayton, Keller, Schmaltz at 16.6, 5.3% projected ownership, I think that is certainly fine. I think the more own line is going to be Cooley, Genther, Peterka at 17K, 5.8% projected ownership. I think either of those is fine. If you want to play Peterka for the revenge narrative, be my guest. I'm more in on a power play type stack here. Go Cooley, Genther, Keller, Cooley, Genther, Schmaltz, something like that. That's probably how I would attack the Sabres. Now, it is a fairly good 5-on-5 matchup, so if you want to just full stack the lines, that's fine. But I think I want to get as much power play exposure as I can. So that is where I would be on Utah. On the Buffalo side, with Zucker out, we were just talking about who's going to move to power play 1. Right now, it's Thompson, Doan, Rosen, and Dahlin. The best guess is Alex Tuck, but they hate putting him on power play one for some reason. I'm just going to assume it's either him or McLeod that's going to move to power play one, which would give that second line 2 of 3 on the top power play unit. Now, it's not a great matchup 5-on-5. Utah has been a good defensive team. So, like, I'm not super, super high on Buffalo here. It would be that McLeod Doan Tuck line at 13.3, 3% projected ownership. If you want to do a Tage Thompson one-off, I think that's fine, but he's 8K with Jack Quinn and Jordan Greenway as his line mates. So I think I'd rather just go to McLeod, Doan, and Tuck. You live on Narrative Street, Josh Doan, 3,700 power play one, been a very impactful net front presence for Buffalo. So that would be the line I'd go to. I prefer the Utah side, and it would be a power play stack for me.
Yeah, I don't dislike Buffalo here. The main reason being that they're so cheap, right? Particularly looking at that Tuck Doan McLeod line, just because we have seen them be very good at 5-on-5, 78 shot attempts, 4.8 expected goals per 60. My assumption is Tuck gets moved to the top power play unit. If not, then it's probably going to be Ryan McLeod. So like one way or another, you're going to get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. And with all the guys now missing from the Buffalo lineup, right? Like, Norris has been out for a while, but, you have Kulik out, you have Jason Zucker out, you have Zach Benson out, you have Justin Danforth out. Like, you have pretty close to half the lineup missing. I got to think that the top 6 plays a ton here tonight, right? Like, I just, I just can't imagine they're going to be like, Mason Geertsen, get ready for 14 or 15 minutes of ice time. So I just, they're cheap. You get 2 of the 3 guys on the top power play. They've been very good at 5-on-5. I don't mind Buffalo 2 here as a filler. If they were even $1,500 more expensive, I would probably just pass on them, but it's their cheap price and how they played at 5-on-5 that's giving me a little bit of inclination to play them. But for me, this is much more about the Utah side. Like you mentioned how good they've been defensively. 5th fewest shot attempts, 4th fewest shots against per 60 at all strengths in the league. And they don't take a ton of penalties. They're amongst the 10 least penalized teams in the NHL. So, for me, this is more of a Utah game. I do like the idea of a power play stack. Buffalo's penalty kill has been good this year, but as we've highlighted a few times, it is all driven by save percentage. 944 penalty killing save percentage for the Sabres. That is absolutely preposterous. It's got to come down even more eventually. This top power play for Utah has been very good. I'm perfectly fine with just 5-man power play stacking. Just put Keller, Schmaltz, and Genther and Cooley and throw Sergachev on the blue line and away you go. That's how I'd probably attack Utah here. If I were to play an even strength line, it probably would be Genther, Cooley, and Peterka. 3.1 expected goals per 60. You could say Peterka's got a little bit of motivation to play well here tonight. But for me, it is a Utah power play stack that I like on that side. And I don't mind Buffalo 2 as a filler on the other side. Not necessarily a priority, but for the amount of ice, for how well they play, the amount of ice time that they're going to get, I certainly don't mind Buffalo 2 considering their price.
Yeah. As long as they're in that 13K range, they're playable until they get, above 15, 16. Philadelphia Tortorella's with a 2.5 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 3 total. The Ghost of Torts still in Philadelphia. They completely nuked their lines. I don't know if the ones in the top stacks are correct, or is Rodrigo Abal's on the line with Dvorak and Michkov?
No, they're going Zegras, Dvorak, Tippett, Gurbankin, Cates, Konechny, Brink, Couturier, Michkov.
Yeah, I mean, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. That is a mess. Montreal going Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Demidov, Newhook, Kapanen, Bolduc, Gallagher, Doc. Now, I'm a little less familiar with Tocchet than I am Tortorella, because if this was John Tortorella, I'd be like, there's no way these are staying. Tocchet has been a little bit more consistent in Vancouver with keeping shit like this going.
Yeah, one thing I will say is that basically the only Flyers line that had any sort of consistency under Tocchet was the Brink Cates Forrester line. And with Forrester out, they don't have that safety valve. So now where you had at least one line that you knew was going to stay together, I don't know if any of these lines are going to stay together.
Yeah, and that's my point here. I don't know if I want to full stack anything on the Flyers. If I do play the Flyers, it'll be one-offs. A one-off Konechny, a one-off Tippett, one-off Zegras, something like that. I don't think I would full stack anything. Just Tocchet looks like he's searching for combos. So like it's one-offs on the Flyers side. On the Montreal side, because of these lines and that the Cates line isn't together, it does give me some interest in Montreal 1 at 18-7. 7% top two, 2.9% projected ownership. Like the ownership's fine. They're fully correlated. The problem that I'm running into is just the pacing of the Flyers. They just play at a miserable pace. And for 18-7, I just like, even if these lines aren't as good defensively as the Kate line, they're still going to muck up the pace. They're going to clog the neutral zone. So like I do, in a nutshell, I do like Montreal 1 in a nutshell. I just think it would be MME only for me. Until like, you see the damn break against Philly, or like they give up like 3 power play goals or something like that. I don't know if I can prioritize a team against them at 18-7. So if you want to, one-off Demidov or something like that, or this game just screams MME for me. My favorite line of the game is Montreal 1, but again, there's red flags there for me.
Yeah, I'll be quick on the Flyers side. There's like really nothing I have interest in stacking. I mean, like I said, that old Brink Cates Forrester line was the only one that would ever really stay together for any extended period, even under Tocchet, and they don't have that security anymore. And none of them are really projecting that well either. You know what I mean? Like like if there was a line combination that was somewhat cheap and it was like, they're coming in at like 4 or 5% top 2 stack, that's one thing. None of these lines are even at 2% for a top 2 stack percentage. So at that, at a 13K ish price, 13 to 14K, like I'll just go play Buffalo. Like I'd way rather play Buffalo 2 here than anything from the Flyers. I think like the top guys will probably have to get a lot of ice time. So if you want a one-off Konechny or one-off, like Noah Cates is projecting well on a point per dollar value because he's under 4,000. Like, if you want a one-off Zegras or something like that, I agree with you. I think that's perfectly fine if you're playing some sort of 3-2-1 lineup here tonight, but full stacking, like I'm out. On the Montreal side, like the top line just continues to play extremely well, right? 3.1 expected goals per 60, 68 shot attempts per 60. Caulfield and Slafkovsky, even with Doc back lately, they're playing around 18 minutes a game. Suzuki up around 20. They're all getting their shots in. Like, it's perfectly fine. But like you said, the Flyers do play at a pretty slow pace. Expected goals against per 60 is like the 6th lowest in the league. Goals against is 5th lowest. And that includes a handful of starts from Sam Ersson. If you take out his starts, like their goals against is even way better than that. I do think taking Forster out does hurt. He's been one of their better penalty killers this season, and over the last couple of years, he's been a pretty good two-way player for them. I just think that they really do have enough good defensive depth, and I mean amongst their forwards to kind of hold the fort here. I agree with you for Montreal be MME. So like in a single entry, like I really don't have a ton of interest in this game.
Boston Bruins, 2.7 total, heading into Long Island. We all know how we feel about that. The Islanders have a 3.3 total, third highest home total on the board. Alrighty. Boston going Pasternak, Geeky, Kuznetsov. I still think I'm butchering that, but that's okay. Zaka, Arvidsson, Middlestat. I don't even know why I mentioned them. Islanders going Horvat, Barzell, Heineman, Palmieri, Drouin, Callum Ritchie, Lee, Pajot, Holmstrom. So David Pastrnak line without Elias Lindholm and a 3K center not on the power play with them is still 17K with 10% ownership. I don't want to do that. That's not something I really want to do. Like, I'm completely fine with the Pastrnak one-off here. Like, this is a pretty good matchup. The Islanders aren't a very, very good team, so I just don't want to pay 17K for Boston 1. Pastrnak one-off, Geeky one-off. If you want to two-man them or, like, do, like, Geeky, Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy for a weird, expensive power play stack, fine, but everything I'm mentioning outside of a Pastrnak one-off for me would be MME only. My interest is honestly on the Islander side, and it would be that top line, Horvat, Barzal, Heineman. I know it's not fully correlated as Barzal isn't on the top unit, which is kind of unfortunate, but the Islanders power play with Schaefer there has been creating a bunch, whether they're actually better than they were last year. I mean, they are, but like whether they're going to be like a middle of the road power play, I still think it's an improvement with Schaefer there. It would be that Islanders top line, Horvat, Barzal, Heineman. The fact that they're willing to put Barzal up on that top line just says to me that they're just going to get heavy minutes here tonight. With Callum Ritchie as your second line center. Like, I like Callum Ritchie. Don't know if he's ready for, 17 to 19 minutes in the NHL. So it would be Islanders 1 for me. 16,600, 4.8% projected ownership. Now that I just slammed Callum Ritchie, I don't mind the Islanders second line as a filler at 13K. You get Drouin and Palmieri on the top unit. I would expect Callum Ritchie to play, 13, 14 minutes, something like that. At that price, it's fine as a filler, but for me, it is Islanders 1, then Pastrnak, then like if you get to Islanders 2 as a filler, that's fine.
Yeah. I don't really have any interest in Boston, and who's Newtonov, I think is the pronunciation, but I mean, anyways, he's just not a good player. I'm sorry. Like, I know why they're putting him there. It's because they really don't have anybody else that they can use. Like, yeah, they could move Pavel Zacha up or whatever, but that line is actually playing well, or starting to play better anyway. They probably don't want to put like Sean Corrali or something on the top line. This is a Hail Mary to hope that it would work. I don't think he's a good player. He's not a top 6 forward in the NHL. I just don't think he can do, like, obviously I'm not a big fan of Elias Lindholm. At least he has some defensive value, and he's a decent finisher, who's Newtonov has none of these qualities. If you want to, like, an over-owned line that he's centering on a 10-game slate, is just an easy pass for me. Yeah, exactly. So, honestly, if anything from the Bruins, it would probably be the second line as a filler. Like I said, they have played reasonably well of late on the season. They're at 2.6 expected goals per 60. Arvidsson's probably going to get some top power play time. With Lindholm out, so you get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play. That's worth something. I think they're fine as a filler, but I don't have a ton of interest in the Bruins. My interest is on the Islander side. Barzal and Horvat over the last 2 years playing together, 265 minutes at 5-on-5, 75 shot attempts, 3.2 expected goals per 60. Even Emil Heineman, like, he's over 15 shot attempts and 1.1 individual expected goals per 60. Like, he's he's clearly not the play driver on that line, but he does serve a function as a shooter / finisher. Like, 16,600, I think you're perfectly fine just to play that top line. And, Boston does take a boatload of penalties. They're at 3.9 times shorthanded per game. It's the second most in the league. And you mentioned the Islanders power play. The top power play unit, 125 shot attempts, 13.9 expected goals per 60, and scoring at an above average rate for a top power play unit. I really do like Islanders 1 here. And the fact that they're not coming in super chalk around 5% top two stack, around 5% ownership, I think they're perfectly fine. So count me in on Islanders 1. I also think Islanders 3 actually is fine as a filler. Lee, Pajot, and Holmstrom. We said a while ago they moved Lee down there to stabilize that line because it was so bad without him. Since he's gotten there, nearly 60 minutes together, 68 shot attempts, 3.8 expected goals per 60. I think they can do some work against the Boston depth, but for me, this is pretty comfortably an Islanders 1 game. And like I said, I don't have if you want to play a one-off David Pastrnak, I'll never say no to that, but I really don't have a ton of interest in the Bruins.
Yeah, we've seen games with David Pastrnak where the Bruins score 1 goal and he scores it and has 11 shots on goal. It's 30 DK points in a 5-1 loss. So he's always an elite one-off. Carolina Hurricanes with a 3 total heading into Madison Square Garden. The Rangers have a 2.9. Rangers going Panarin, Miller, Zibanejad, Cooley, Lafreniere, Noah. That's probably where I'll stop. Carolina mixing up their lines here, going Aho, Svechnikov, Hall, Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook, and Ehlers, Stankov, and Blake. Now, I do like these lines. What I don't like is this matchup. It's weird for me to say this, but through the first month of the season, at 5-on-5, the Rangers have the lowest expected goals against per 60 in the NHL. In the NHL at 2.16. That Fox Gavrikov pairing has been really, really good. Igor has been Igor. Obviously that Fox pairing is going to go out against Aho, Svechnikov, Hall. I don't have a ton of interest in them anyway, even though Svechnikov does look like he's starting to wake up. If I was going to play Carolina here, it would be the second and third lines. Stankov and Blake, we've covered for weeks. They have been excellent. You add a player like Nikolai Ehlers, I think that line at 14,400 is in play. They're a little bit more expensive than a filler, which kind of sucks. But in MME, if you get there and you're pairing them with just say Islanders 1 because they're in the 16K range, I think that's a fine chance, or a fine stab. I just don't particularly love Carolina. And if you do need a filler, Stahl, Martinook, Jarvis would be in play. Stahl and Martinook have their best numbers offensively with Jarvis. You've mentioned a bunch why Jordan Stahl is an excellent center for Jarvis. So I don't mind Carolina in a nutshell. I just don't like the matchup. So I guess that would give me more interest on the Rangers side. But I don't know if I want to play 19,900 Panarin, Miller, Zibanejad. It's a better matchup than it will be down the line if everyone's healthy. With their guys out, they're middle of the pack by expected goals against per 60. Their goaltending hasn't been great. They're obviously, mixing up their lines just to get some more balance, I guess. I think Panarin, Miller, Zibanejad's fine, but I'm not running out to play them. I think, Cooley, Lafreniere, Laba as a filler would interest me more than spending almost 20K for the Rangers top line. So that's where I'm about. I don't think I would prioritize any line in this game, but I think, the Carolina second and third lines are fine in MME. I think if you need a filler, Laba, Lafreniere, Cooley are fine. The top lines are both fine, but I just don't think I'm going to get there.
Yeah, it's fun. I looked at Carolina's numbers. It's been 5 games without Keandre Miller and Jacob Slavin both out of the lineup. In those 5 games, 31st by expected goals against and 26th by shots against in the league. Now, it was a fairly tough schedule: Colorado, Dallas, Vegas, then the Islanders and the Bruins. But, the Rangers are just kind of waiting to break through. They're still generating very well. I know feels like we've been saying that all season about them, but they have been generating fairly well. So, that top line all skating together. I was looking at the numbers for Miller and Panarin this year when they're on the ice.
They're nasty together.
Yeah, 81 shot attempts, 3.3 expected goals per 60, and they're going to get a ton of ice time, right? Like those guys are all skating 21 to 22 minutes a game. So you have a Carolina lineup that's, without their top two defensemen. And honestly, without Shane Gostisbehere, like low-key, I know we talk about his impact on the power play, and it is meaningful. That third pair with him was really, really good to start this season. That hasn't been quite the same without him. So honestly, I don't mind Rangers 1 here. Like I would rather play Rangers 1 than Montreal 1. I'll tell you that. Like I don't think Carolina is just missing too many key players on defense to consider them as one of the elite defensive teams as we had been. And the thing with Carolina, I mentioned this, like over the last few years, they've been giving up more and more and more high danger shots against. Now, they still don't give up a ton of shots against overall, but the ratio of high danger shots to total shots allowed keeps increasing. And obviously, it's been pretty bad this year. This has not been a great defensive team, especially with all their injuries. I honestly don't mind Rangers 1 here. I think for me, it would probably be more of a 20 max thing. At 19,900, they're perfectly fine. Like if I'm going to pay up that much, like we'll talk about Tampa Bay in a little bit. Like Tampa Bay is right in that price range. Colorado's like nearly $2,000 more expensive. So like they're way above that. But it's just, I would probably go play Tampa Bay instead. But if this was a fully healthy Carolina team, I'd be like, yeah, I'm probably out. But that ain't this and this ain't that. So I honestly don't mind Rangers 1 here. On the Carolina side, it would probably be that Jordan Staal line. Going back to last year, that line, 71 shot attempts, 3.2 expected goals, not scoring as well as you'd want them to. It's still a Jordan Staal line. They're not going to score as well as you want them to. But they'll probably miss a lot of that Fox-Gavrikov pairing. And listen, some of the depth Rangers defense pairs have actually been solid this year. So it's not
Borg.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like a walk in the park, but I do think it is a better matchup. So I would probably dip down to Carolina 3. At 12,400, I would probably just rather go play Buffalo instead that we just talked about. So like I don't think a ton for me on the Carolina side. At least not amongst their forwards. A different story once we talk about their defensemen. For me, this game is about Rangers 1 or moving along.
Move along, we shall. Edmonton Oilers with a 2.9 total. Heading into Dallas, the Stars have a 3.1. Dallas going Rantanen, Robertson, Johnston, Sagan, Bork, Steele. Bunch of guys. Edmonton last night went Draisaitl, Ralstovic, Podkolzin, McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Mangiapane. They lost to the Blues last night, Haas in shambles. This is back-to-back on the road in a really tough matchup. Connor McDavid line under 1% projected is just like that will keep you up at night. I'm not saying let's go play McDavid here tonight, but I'm saying like at that ownership it is horrifying, but it's not like it's McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman. It's McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Mangiapane. And let's be honest, if Ryan Nugent Hopkins changed his last name to Smith, we would be completely bashing him over the past few seasons. It's a brutal matchup. Like Dallas is really good defensively. They have a very good penalty kill. They have good goaltending. If you get some Edmonton in your MME stacks, I'm leaving it, right? Getting over the field on 0.6% owned Edmonton 1 is not very hard in 150 max. I would be over the field a little bit there. Same with Edmonton 2. Roslovic actually has looked pretty decent as a net front, but again, this is not a very good power play spot. If I get them into my crunches or solvers or whatever you're using, I'd leave it. I'm not running out to play them. Dallas 1 is the interesting conversation here because they're 22,100. 26.8% top two. I think that's the highest on the night. 14.1% projected ownership. So The positives here, they're going to play a ton of minutes. They're fully correlated. The downside here is still it's not the best matchup. They haven't played great together. I don't know. And they're 22,100. Now it is Stuart Skinner and net. Calvin Pickard went last night. There's a bunch of lines above 20K on this slate. You have Dallas 1, you have Tampa 1, you have Colorado 1, you have Winnipeg 1. Dallas is also the most expensive. They have the highest top 2 as well. I don't know if I want to spend $22,000 on a Dallas top line here. Like, I know they're shooting against Stuart Skinner, and I know they're going to play a ton of minutes, but you know who else is going to play a ton of minutes? Colorado 1. You know who else is going to play a ton of minutes? Winnipeg 1. So it's like, I think I'm leaning towards fading it, especially if they're going to be pretty high owned here. They've been creating a bunch. They just haven't been finished. I'm at a very big crossroads here. I'm very conflicted on what I want to do. I think I'm leaning towards fading just because it's a 10-game slate and I don't want to tie up that much salary. But they're almost double the next highest team in top 2 stack. So, like, if you want to play them, you can be comfortable playing them. I think they're perfectly fine. So that's the only line of interest for me on the Dallas side. I don't really want to play Sagan, Bork, Steele. I'd much rather just go play Laba, Lafreniere, Cooley at the same prices, essentially. So it would be Dallas 1 for me. It's just a price and ownership thing. McDavid, if you get into them in MME, I'm leaving it just because of the ownership and their slate breaking abilities. But it's a pretty tough matchup here.
Yeah, here's the thing for me is this is a bad power play matchup for Dallas. The Rangers. The Oilers are one of the least penalized teams in the league. They're giving up the second fewest power plays per game to the opponent of any team in the league. And if you look at Dallas's power play over the last couple of years, whenever they've had to use Sagan on the top power play unit, for injuries or otherwise, the shot attempts go down about 20% and the goal scoring rate goes down about 25%. Their power play gets demonstrably worse when they have to use Sagan because of who they're replacing him. Like, he's replacing Roope Hintz, who is like an automatic zone entry machine, like low key. Like, he is great at doing that. Sagan can't do that at this age. And it just hurts their ability to set up and get the power play going. So even if they do get in, how many power plays are they going to get tonight? Like 2, like maybe 3? It's just not a great power play spot. So you're asking me to spend over 22K on it. What is an objectively bad power play spot for Dallas? I mean, I guess you're always in a good power play spot when you're shooting against Stuart Skinner, like in that sense. But, looking at everything else, it really is not. So, I don't really have a ton of interest. Like, if this was facing off, the ownership and everything would be different. But if this was Boston going in, and I would say, we're going to be like, Dallas might get 4 or 5 power plays here tonight, that'd be one thing. But with the Oilers giving up so many few power play opportunities, like, I think for me, it's a pass. There are other lines over in that 20 to 22K range that I'd rather play here tonight. So for me, I'm out on Dallas. I mean, on the Edmonton side, like, that Edmonton top line has actually been decent at 5-on-5 this year. 3.1 expected goals, 70 shot attempts per 60 at 5-on-5. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I think it's 9 of his 15 points have come on the power play.
He's been a merchant for years.
Yeah, the last time he did this, he had a 100-point season. So, not saying he's going to do that, but he's certainly doing extremely well. Like, the power play still, like, Edmonton's not drawing a ton of power play opportunities, and they're still at 13 power play goals in 14 games. I think for me it would be Edmonton 1. I'm going to be honest, I don't really have a ton of interest in either side. Like, I don't think I'm playing Dallas because I really don't think it's a good power play spot and over 22K. Like, listen, they're going to get a ton of ice time. You're right about that. Like, they're going to play anyways, anywhere's between what, like 21 and 24 minutes. They're going to get a lot of ice time. So that's why, like, the 22,100 isn't as bad as it could be. But as you said, there are other spots where the top guys are going to get a ton of ice. I mean, we just did the Rangers. The Rangers are over $2,000 cheaper. Those guys are going to play 21 to 23 minutes here tonight. I'm not comparing the Rangers to the Dallas Stars, but for over $2,000 cheaper, you do have to factor that in. I think for me, I would probably play Edmonton 1. I don't know if you necessarily have to play Mangiapane. You can take him out and put in Roslovic, make it more of a power play stack if you want. For me, this game is about Edmonton 1. They're actually creating. You get 2 out of 3 guys on the top power play. Like I said, you can take off Mangiapane, put on Roslovic, and kind of be on your way. So Edmonton 1/Edmonton power play. I am out on Dallas.
We know how that ends. Let's get this out of the way, shall we? Nashville Predators with a 2.7 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 3.7. Minnesota going Kaprizov, Rossi, Johansson, Boldy, Eriksson, Ek, Tarasenko, Hartman, Hinostroza, Foligno. Nashville going Forsberg, O'Reilly, Evangelista, Marchessault, Stamkos, Haula, Bunting, Wood, Svechkov. They played last night. They lost to the Canucks with Saros in net, so it's going to be Justice and Newen. This is the chalky spot of the night. Kaprizov, Rossi, Johansson, 14% top 2 stacks, 26.8% projected ownership. Boldy, Eriksson, Ek, Tarasenko, 16,900, 15.3% projected ownership. Now, this Predators team is bad. Justice Anuin, not great. But you know what else sucks? The Wild at 5-on-5. Like, they're bad. Marcus Johansson, 27% in 2025, almost 2026. Like, he still has maybe some juice that's worth the squeeze, but like, do I want to do that for 27%? When, that line has been struggling to create? Not particularly. The second line at least has been a little bit better offensively, but they haven't been finishing. So it's like the opposite problem. I don't want to stack either of these lines for 5-on-5. If anything, it would be some sort of power play stack. And the only way I'd have Minnesota Wild in my lineup tonight is just on full 5-man stacking the power play. That's it. That's the only way you'll see the Wild in my lineup. I don't want to one-off Kaprizov because he's going to be over 30%. And if he's going to get there, someone else on the power play is probably coming with them because they've been atrocious at 5-on-5, and maybe the Predators are the medicine to that ailment. But like, I don't want to play over 25% Rossi and Johansson to find out at 16,200. So it would be just a full-on onslaught power play stack. It worked for me yesterday with them with Saros and that with Vancouver. I'm not saying it's going to work out here, but like, the way to get lower owned in a high ownership game is just straight up power play stack. And I think that's the only way I play Minnesota here. Nashville, they're kind of like the same team. Like, they're awful at 5-on-5. I will say, the Forsberg line at least is generating. So, like, I guess that accounts for something, and they're fully correlated, and the Minnesota penalty kill has been bad since their inception. So, like, you include ownership, you include price. I think my favorite line is Forsberg, O'Reilly, Evangelista at 15.5 and 6% projected ownership. But again, like, I don't really want to play a 6% Nashville team back-to-back on the road. So if you're going to see anything in my single entry lineup here tonight, it would be a Minnesota power play stack, but I don't think I'm getting there.
Yeah, I agree with you on the power play stack. The simple fact is, like, whatever we think of Minnesota, otherwise they're drawing the most power play opportunities per game. So you don't even need to be a great or an efficient power play. Like, if you're getting 4 power play opportunities per game, you do not need to be a great power play to average around 1 goal per game, or, give or take. And that's basically what they're doing. And yeah, if you look at ownership, The first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth highest owned projected players tonight are all for Minnesota. Also the 9th and also the 13th. So like there's going to be a ton of ownership here on Minnesota tonight. Now, Josh mentioned how good or bad these teams are. I think it's worth highlighting this. These two teams have the exact same goals against rate per 60 minutes at 3.71. Minnesota's actually has a lower goals for per 60 minutes this season at 2.73 compared to Nashville's 2.8. If you look at their expected goals for and expected goals against, they're virtually identical. These are basically the same team. The difference is the concentration of scoring because Minnesota gets so many power play opportunities, and their power play is like just a bit below average on a per minute basis for a top unit. But like I said, when you're getting 4+ opportunities per game, it doesn't really matter. So I agree with you. If you play Minnesota here tonight, like it probably has to be a full power play stack, especially where Vladimir Tarasenko is one of the lower owned players for the Wild, at least amongst their top guys at 12.7%. He's only 3,600. You mentioned how good, like that line has at least been generating some offensively at 5-on-5. They also probably aren't going to get a ton of shutdown minutes. They've been using that Rossi Johansson Kaprizov line in shutdown roles. And if you look at Nashville's middle six, it is capital B, capital A, capital D bad. It's really only the top line that is a tough matchup. So I would just full power play stack them. I agree. Kaprizov, second line, Spurgeon on the blue line, and away you go. On the Nashville side, like I think their only playable line, I agree with you, is Nashville 1. O'Reilly, Forsberg, and Evangelista, like you said, at least they have been creating 74 shot attempts, 3.6 expected goals per 60. Evangelista and O'Reilly probably around 18 minutes. Philip Forsberg around 20. Minnesota's top line, at least in a small-ish sample, has been fine defensively at 5-on-5, but Minnesota does have a bad penalty kill. But the thing with the Minnesota penalty kill is that they don't have to see the ice that much. Minnesota giving up the fewest power play opportunities per game in the league. So Minnesota, like you can't count on Nashville to have more than like a couple power plays here tonight. So 20 max and above, I think I'd be fine with Nashville 1. Single entry, I think it's a pass for me. This game is about the Minnesota power play. Like I said, if you play Minnesota, like you said, if you play Minnesota, you just stack the top power play unit and you go on your way. I don't think or you just 6-man stack and you add in one of Rossi or Johansson or something like that. I don't think you just play one of the even strength lines and then move along. They draw way too many power plays to just pick one even strength line or the other.
If you are, I'm muted.
Okay.
If you are a New York Jets football fan, not only did they trade Sauce Gardner an hour ago, they just traded Quinnen Williams to the Cowboys. So fire sale in New York. Cool. Tampa Bay Lightning with a 2.8 total heading into Colorado. The Avs have a 3.2. Tampa going Kucherov, Point, Hagel. They went 11-7 last game. So like Cirelli, Gensel just kind of rotated, and then Bjorkstrand, James, Gonsalves, Gord, Holmberg, Gergensons. Like Dominic James or the other guy, they play like 4 minutes. Colorado going McKinnon, Netchus, Lehkonen, Nishushkin, Nelson, Colton. So like there's 2 lines in this game that are cheaper, that are above 20K and cheaper than Dallas one. It's McKinnon, Netchus, Lehkonen, 21,700. Kucherov, Point, Hagel, 20,200. Under 1% projected ownership for Colorado one here. They're $400 cheaper than Dallas one. They have a track record of running people over. And Point and Kucherov don't have great defensive numbers with Gensel. But, like, Hagel's best defensive numbers are with Cirelli. So, like, yeah, adding him to the top line helps. Maybe that makes them league average. And I would absolutely take Colorado one against the league average line any day of the week. So, if I was spending up above 20K, I much prefer Colorado one to Dallas one. the top two stack isn't as high. The ownership's way lower. They're still going to play a ridiculous amount of minutes. So I do like Colorado 1. The power play is still an issue, but they'll figure it out. And whether that's tonight or whether it's next week, for 0.7% projected ownership, I'm willing to find out if it's tonight. So if I'm spending up and I don't know, I haven't built my lineup yet, I much prefer Colorado 1 to Dallas 1. That's really the only line for me on the Colorado side. If you want a two-man Nelson Nichushkin, that's fine. But I'm concentrating on the big boys here. It's kind of the same thing on the Tampa side. That top line fully correlated at 20,200, 6.6% projected ownership. Yes, Hagel will get yo-yoed off and on the top unit. That happens. So, for that price, it's fine. But Colorado dictating matchups, they're good defensively. They have a good penalty kill. I kind of prefer the Colorado side. If you want to play Tampa 1 because, they're the cheapest of the lines above 20K, I get it. Kucherov is matchup proof, kind of like how McDavid and McKinnon and all those guys. But for pound, if I'm playing a line over 20K between Dallas, Colorado, and Tampa, it's Colorado 1.
Yeah. One of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of Tampa here tonight is, as you mentioned, Colorado's penalty kill. They're not taking a ton of penalties. They're at 3 times shorthanded per game so far this season. That's better than the league average. If you look at Colorado's penalty killing numbers, they're basically top 5, top 6 across the board, shots against, shot attempts against, expected goals against. So not only do they not give up a ton of power plays, but they're very good at killing off the penalties that they do take. So it's not really that good of a power play spot for Tampa. Tampa 1 is fine. Point Kucherov and Hagel, 20,200. They do have good offensive numbers so far this season. 70 shot attempts, 3.2 expected goals per 60. At 20,200, they're kind of if you don't want to pay all the way up for a Dallas or a Colorado, I think that's kind of the line that you might want to look to. But, in that price range, we talked about the Rangers earlier. I would probably rather play the Rangers. I might still play Tampa Bay over Montreal, but I would certainly rather play the Rangers top line here tonight just because they do play a ton of minutes. They do have good numbers together. Kind of like Tampa, and they're at home versus on the road. So I don't know. I don't, in a nutshell, I don't mind Tampa here tonight. I just think there are other spots in that price range that I'd rather play. I would rather play Colorado as well. That Colorado top line has just been, as you might say, nitrous at 5-on-5, 83 shot attempts, 4.3 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Tampa doesn't take a ton of power plays, but Colorado is drawing a fair amount of power play opportunities so far this season, 3.8 per game, 4th most in the league. The numbers have been better with Victor Olofsson on the top unit. At least their shot rate has increased. It's up 12% with Victor Olofsson on the top power play. So that helps. Considering the ownership difference, I would probably rather play Colorado than Dallas. 14% versus sub 1% at a cheaper price. That seems fairly easy to me. So I certainly don't mind playing Colorado 1 here tonight. You want to dip down to Colorado 2. I guess it's fine, but they're kind of in that no man's land at 14K where they're not really a filler stack. They're more of a mid-price stack. And, there are enough mid-price stacks elsewhere that I think you can get to. I will say, that second line with Colton and Nichushkin together, 77 shot attempts, 3.9 expected goals per 60. Nichushkin shooting quite a bit. If you just want to do a Nichushkin Colton 2-man or something like that, I think that's fine. But for me, this is a Colorado 1 game. Either way, I think it's about the top lines and not so much about the depth. I would rather just play the Avs. They just have much better 5-on-5 numbers. Tampa Bay's penalty kill is not nearly as good, and the Avs power play has been getting better with Olsen, and they draw way more power play opportunities.
Super Bowl for Frostback, the Florida Panthers with a 3.3 total. Heading into Anaheim, the Ducks have a 2.7. Florida running Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Rodriguez, Marchand, Lundell, Luosterainen, Bennett, Samoskevich, Bockwist. Duckies going Carlson, Kreider, Terry, Cutter, Gauthier, McTavish, and Bennett, Seneca. This is an interesting game. Florida is getting a fair bit of ownership here. They've also been one of the unluckiest teams in the NHL in terms of goal scoring so far this year. I think they've scored like negative 10 goals above expected from their forwards. Like they're having, like that's unsustainably bad. Like I get that they're going to have regression without Barkov and Tkachuk, but like that's just fairly unlucky. The other side of this is like the Ducks are a much improved team from last year, and I don't know if I want to play double-digit owned Luosterainen, Lundell, Marchand at 13.9 or an 8% Evan Rodriguez line at 16.6. Like at that price, I'd rather just go play the Islanders, as ridiculous as that sounds. So ownership agnostic, I think it would be the Marchand, Lundell, Luosterainen line for me, but at 13.9 and 10%, like I'd rather just look elsewhere. So I think I would do some sort of like Verhaeghe, Reinhart, Marchand 3-man. But like the Ducks penalty kill is improved. They haven't been taking a ton of penalties. Dostal looks better than he has at the beginning of the season. I think Florida for me is MME only. On the Duck side, I think I would go back to Carlson, Kreider, Terry at 16.8. No one's playing them, and that's the draw. 0.2% projected. Like Cutter, Gauthier, McTavish, Seneca are fine at 16.4, 2.6% projected ownership. But like I prefer the Carlson, Kreider, Terry line. It's not the best power play matchup, but they're fully correlated, and Kreider on the net front makes a big difference on their power play. So that's why I would go to the Carlson line. Am I going to get there in single entry? Probably not. But you take ownership into the equation, I think I'd rather play the Carlson line than the Evan Rodriguez line, right around the same price. But, you know, this is an MME game for me.
Yeah, I do have some interest on the Florida side. Here's the tough part is that their top power play is spread across 3 lines. And I mean, I think it's been a little while since we've actually had Florida on the slate. One thing that we have mentioned is that the top power play has been way, way better since taking off Aaron Ekblad and putting on Samoskevich. If you look at the top power play for Florida so far this year, without Aaron Ekblad on the top unit, shot attempts up 27%, goals and expected goals more than double. It's been night and day. And who could have thought that taking Aaron Ekblad off the power play for a good forward would make it better? I certainly didn't see that one coming. So that's why I would have a tough time like playing Florida 2 and leaving Reinhart off. It feels like if they do, nuke the slate here tonight, Reinhart's probably going to have to be a pretty big part of it. So I don't mind doing like a Marchand, Lundell, Reinhart stack, like stack across the lines, kick off Luosterainen, put Reinhart on there. Certainly makes them more expensive. But it's not a bad power play spot. Like, Florida is drawing a fair amount of power play opportunities. They're at 3.8 per game. It's the 5th most in the league. And if they keep drawing that many power plays with the power play is legitimately been good. Like, I don't mean like just improved. It's been legitimately good for a top power play unit ever since they kicked off Ekblad. And, that second line, that Lundell, Marchand, Luosterainen line, 3.8 expected goals, 65 shot attempts. They're going to avoid that top pair that's been pretty good defensively for Anaheim. And once you get to the second and third pairs, that's when you can really take advantage of them defensively. So I would probably do like a Marchand, Lundell, Reinhart 3-man stack and be on my way. I honestly don't mind this spot for Florida. I know the ownership's a little high on that second line, but like I said, I think you take off Luostarinen and put on Reinhart. I mean, listen, Sam Reinhart, over 20 shot attempts and over 2.1 individual expected goals per 60. Like this guy, he's starting to score. He's been starting to score a bit more over the last, week or 2 weeks or whatever. And I just think that's just going to keep going. So Marchand, Lundell, Reinhart is probably where I go. If you want to do like Marchand, Lundell, Sam Miskevich, I guess that's fine. But I would have a tough time making a Florida stack without Sam Reinhart. On the Anaheim side, I think I would dip down to the second line. Now, I get that they're going to have higher ownership, the Gauthier, McTavish, Seneca line. But the thing is they're going to avoid that Reinhart matchup. And the Reinhart matchup, especially when they're on the ice with Forsling or whatever, is excellent defensively. Whereas that Lundell, Luostarinen, Marchand line is playing quite literal pond hockey. 65 shot attempts for, 62 against, 3.8 expected goals for, 3.3 against. Like it's like old Pittsburgh 1, like trading chances back and forth. And I think Anaheim 2, with the way that they've played, 89 shot attempts, 4.5 expected goals per 60, they do basically the same thing. I think they can take advantage of it. So for me, it'd be Gauthier, McTavish, and Seneca. They've been really good offensively this season. Cutter Gauthier, second in the league in shot attempts per minute. Like this guy's shooting all the time. Mason McTavish sitting at about 1.3 individual expected goals. They've been really good. So for me, it would be Anaheim 2. Honestly, I think my interest is a little bit more in some sort of Florida power play stack.
Detroit Red Wings with a 2.6 total heading into Vegas. The Golden Knights have a 3.4. Vegas going Eichel, Barbashev, Howden. Rangers legend Brett Howden. Dorofeyev, Marner, Hurdle. Carlson, Smith, Saad. Detroit going Larkin, Raymond, Finney. DeBrincat, Casper, Appleton. It is these Detroit lines are just something. Detroit 18,100 on the road in Vegas with Emmett Finney on the top line is just way too expensive. For $200 cheaper, you can go play Dorofeyev, Marner, and Hurdle in the same game. Like that just doesn't compute in my brain.
I mean, if you want to pay in the 18K range and still get low ownership, that Montreal top line is $600 more expensive, and their ownership's projected under 3%.
Yeah. So, I'm not getting to Detroit 1 in single entry. Detroit 2, I don't want to, an Appleton line. No thanks. I guess a DeBrincat one-off is fine. But I'm generally out on Detroit here. My interest is on the Vegas side. And, there's the Dorofeyev, Marner, Hurdle line is probably going to avoid the Sider pairing because they've been sending out Carlson, Smith, Saad a bunch against top comp, or it's like Eichel. So once you get past that, it's just a mess. And their penalty, Detroit's penalty kill sucks. And this line is fully correlated. It's just one of those things where it's like, can I stack a line without Jack Eichel? And that's the question. So, I have no issue with Vegas 2. I think if I stacked Vegas 2, I'd add in Eichel because it's such a good power play matchup. I'm fine without it. I just feel like if the Vegas power play gets there, though, Eichel's coming along for the ride. But it is a good 5-on-5 matchup for the Dorofeyev, Marner, Hurdle line. So it would be Vegas 2. Vegas power play for me, not too much interest in Detroit.
Yeah, like I said, if I'm looking for low ownership for an $18,000-ish line, I'll just go play Montreal 1 instead. Detroit 2, $13,900. Again, that's not really a spot where they're priced as like a filler. Carolina's a couple $100 more expensive. We just talked about Florida 2. Obviously, they're coming with a lot more ownership, but Buffalo 2 is right there as well. There are just other spots. So I'm out on Detroit here tonight. Vegas is kind of interesting because Detroit's the one thing that saves, we should say the Detroit penalty kill has been better to start this year than it was last year. Now, there's a lot of room for improvement. So that's one thing. The other is like Detroit just also doesn't take a ton of penalties. Like both them and Vegas, they're the 7th and 6th fewest time shorthanded per game so far this season. So neither team really gives up a ton of power plays. But Vegas is drawing a lot of power plays on the other side. Second most power plays per game of any team in the league. Only Minnesota is getting more. So, yeah, I agree with you that if you play Vegas here tonight, I do think you just make it it's just a straight-up power play stack. The Dorothy, Marner Hurdle line, add in Jack Eichel. Like, you know, it's basically that problem with Minnesota. It's like, how do you leave off Kirill Kaprizov? It's like, how do you leave off Jack Eichel? I mean, even without Mark Stone, the guy has, I think it's like 3 goals and 18 shots in his last 5 games. Like, you know, what are you supposed to do? So, at the very least, it is Vegas too. Like that line has been great at 5-on-5 as well. 81 shot attempts, 3.3 expected goals. So they've been great at 5-on-5, but this is a spot where the Vegas power play could take advantage. I would probably add an Eichel. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Especially like when you compare it to Minnesota, like Kaprizov's playing 24 minutes a game lately. Like leaving him off a power play stack seems kind of ridiculous. Maybe you can with Eichel and get away with it. At the very least, it'd be Vegas too. If not in Eichel, make it a power play stack, and I'm out on Detroit.
Mr. Sampson in the chat says Detroit PK 6th in the league. One of their beat writers has a good write-up on the PK. New formation with the diamond. 33% of the shots are making to the net. If you're going to get, like, okay, like, it's better, and I get that. But if you're going to get, like, if Vegas draws, like, 4 penalties here, it's still the Detroit penalty kill. Like, I want to see them do that over the course of, like, time before I completely just write them in as having a good PK now. Winnipeg Jets with a 2.6 total. Heading into Los Angeles, the Kings have a 2.9. Adam Lowry is back for the Jets. That helps a lot, but not as much as Sandberg coming back. He's still out. Winnipeg going Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Niederreiter, Lowry, Pearson, Iafallo, Nemestikov, Taze. Kings going Fiala, Byfield, LaFerriere, Kempe, Kopitar, Joel, Armia, and then more Deneau, Kuzmenko. Like, the Winnipeg top line here is 21,600. That's just really expensive here. For $100 more, I can go play Colorado 1 at home. Like, the Kings have been an adventure, but they're starting to become a little less adventurous. The problem is, as you know, with the flow chart here, if they're in a bad matchup, the flow chart says play them. But, like, there's no way I could prioritize Winnipeg 1 for 0.4% ownership when, like, Colorado 1 is, like, pretty much the exact same price and the exact same ownership. So if you're going to give me a low owned spot, I still much rather go play Colorado here. So, like, they're fine. But, you know, I'd rather, like, if I'm spending above 20K, it's for Colorado 1. And I have no interest in the depth of Winnipeg. The Kings are a bit more interesting here. I think it would be Byfield, Fiala, LaFerriere. You know, once you get past the Morrissey pairing, it's a problem that Iafallo and Nemestikov Taze line has been adventurous, to say the least, on defense. So it would be Fiala, Byfield, LaFerriere for me at 15,100, 6% projected ownership. If you want to go to Kempe, Kopitar, Joel Armia, the price kind of is a filler at 13.7, 6%. I think, you know, with all things being equal, I would just go to Fiala, Byfield, LaFerriere.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Kings. And it's kind of like by default, right? Like Kempe, Kopitar, and Joel Armia. Like, listen, I'm a Habs fan. I appreciate Joel Armia. He's good defensively, good on the penalty kill. I don't imagine he's going to be filling the net. The third line with Kuzmenko, Moore, and Deneau, like, Trevor Moore struggled at times this year. Kuzmenko's obviously struggling, considering that they've moved him down to the third line and off the top power play. So, like, it's kind of like by process of elimination, it's Fiala, Byfield, Lafreniere. And, like, remember, these guys played a lot together last year. You know, they were good together, but their value was a lot more defensive than offensive. Like 50 shot attempts against, 2 expected goals against per 60, 2.8 expected goals for, around the same actual goals for rate. So, like, they were good offensively, but not great by any stretch. You know, you still get Fiala and Byfield on the top power play unit. They're 15,100. Like, these two teams are amongst the two most penalized teams in the league. The only teams taking more penalties per game are the Blackhawks and the Bruins. So I guess it would be Fiala, Byfield, Lafreniere, 15,100. I think they're fine as a mid-price stack. I don't know how the matchups are going to go here. I'm assuming they're going to put out Kopitar, Kempe, and Armia, because I can't imagine, with Moore struggling the way he is and them moving Kuzmenko on his line, that they're going to keep using them in a shutdown role. So maybe you can get Byfield and Fiala and some soft second and third defense pair matchups from the Jets. That would probably be my pick on the Kings side. But I mean, the one, like we always say, the one way you can kind of expose Winnipeg. I mean, the Winnipeg penalty kill has been good this year. It's just that they've still been taking a ton of penalties. So that's one way you can get to them. And I don't have a ton of faith in the Kings power play, but it would be Fiala, Byfield, Lafreniere, I guess. On the Winnipeg side, like, it's Winnipeg one or bust. Like, the reason why you play them is because the Kings are taking so many penalties, right? Like I said, them and the Jets, third and fourth most in the league. The Kings have given up a power play goal against per game to start the season. Like, they're one of 5 teams to do that, and I think the only team on this slate to do that. So it's been a pretty bad start for the Kings PK. Obviously, we know that Winnipeg top power play unit has been very good. I don't have any particular issue using Winnipeg one here. I would probably rather play them than Dallas. I'm going to be honest, just because I do think it is a really good power play spot. I agree with you. I'd probably rather play Colorado, but you know, for me, I think Winnipeg one is certainly playable here just because it is a very good power play spot for them. I think the Byfield Fiala line are both in play. I feel fairly confident saying neither is going to be in my single entry lineup here tonight.
Let's talk about defensemen at the top of the board in the 6K range. Makar, Bouchard, Morrissey, Rasmus Dahlin, Victor Hedman. I guess it would be kind of Makar by default here in the top range. Like, I think Morrissey's fine just because it's a good power play matchup. Like, Bouchard's in a really tough matchup. Rasmus Dahlin's not in the best matchup, but I guess he's fine. So I guess I would go Makar 1, Morrissey 2. Honestly, like, I don't know if I'm spending up there. If I was going to start in the higher range, it would probably be Adam Fox at 5,900. But, you know, in the top range, it would be Makar for me.
Yeah, Dahlin and Makar are 1-2 by projection and point per dollar over on Stochastic here tonight. Makar obviously at the top, but he's $1,600 more expensive. I think Dahlin and Makar are probably 1-2. The thing about Josh Morrissey is I think he's playable. I would have a tough time playing him and not including him in a Winnipeg one stack. You know what I mean? It feels like that power play does go like 2 for 5 or something like that. I would have a tough time leaving off like Scheifele and Connor or whatever. So I don't mind Morrissey here tonight. I think it would be more in Winnipeg one stacks. The mid-price range, I think there's some playables here. Like I said, I don't mind the Florida power play here tonight. So Seth Jones, I think, is in play. I don't really love Charlie McAvoy, generally speaking, but he's projecting fairly well for sub 5K. Jacob Trouba, listen, like, the Ducks still give up a ton of shots, and he's been, like, ever since Gudas went out, him and Zellweger have been playing like 24 minutes a game. So even Trouba, I think, is fine. Sean Walker for Carolina in that 4 to 5K range, I think, is also playable. A little bit more expensive, I think it's Shea Theodore or Thomas Harley. Harley is blocking something like 2.8 shots per game. I wish he would start scoring a little bit more, but at least the block shots are nice. Mikhail Sergachev Not projecting necessarily well, but he's a guy I'll mention just in case you are playing Utah. I'd probably include him in Utah stacks. For cheaper guys like Jared Spurgeon, Nikita Nikishin, our boy Brant Clark, I think Alex Carrier is fine. Pellick and Romanov from the Islanders, I think, are definitely both in play. Gustav Forsling from Florida is projecting well at 3,500. Also, if you need a punt, like Andrew Peak, Nick Blankenburg getting second power play run for Nashville, I guess. Will Borgen is blocking a fair amount of shots for the Rangers. And as you mentioned earlier, he's actually been playing well this season. Nico Mikla, sub 3K, Jalen Chatfield under 3K, and Jake Middleton for Minnesota. He blocks shots at a fairly high rate as well, and he's under 3K.
I know someone's going to ask, so I'll get out ahead of it. Matthew Schaefer is fine, but his minutes have come down into like the 17 minutes for like 3 straight games. Just for prosperity. Let's talk about some goaltenders. The top of the board doesn't really inspire much confidence. Gustafsson, Schmid, Montembeault, Sorokin, Wedgwood, Bob. I guess it'd be Philip Gustafsson just because like Nashville is one of the worst scoring teams in the NHL, but 8,400, that's a tough sell for me. I guess if I was spending up, it would be for Sorokin just because like Boston's on a great team. This is a winnable game for the Islanders, but I don't think I'll be spending up in the mid-range. Like Kochekhov's making his debut. Like there's questions marked there. It's Casey DeSmith, not Jake Ottinger. So there's questions there. Like I think Vejmelka at 7,800 is fine. Hellebuck at 7,600 is fine. Like Igor Shesterkin sticks out like a sore thumb at 7,500 against Carolina. I think Lucas Dostal at 7,400 has been fine. Danny V, going back to him, I guess, if I was spending down at 7,200. But honestly, like, I'd probably be between Shesterkin and Dostal at that point if I was in the mid-range.
Yeah, Gustafsson does lead by point projections. And honestly, it's not that close. He's like 0.8 points higher than the next closest goalie. Listen, Minnesota doesn't take penalties. Nashville has a bad power play anyway. As long as Gustafsson doesn't get pummeled at 5-on-5, he should be fine here tonight. I think Sorokin is fine against Boston. I'm still kind of shaky about his start. He has had a little bit better lately. Akira Schmid, 8,300 seems a little bit risky. I will shout out Casey DeSmith. Like I know, like listen, we do love Jake Ottinger around here. We do worry about DeSmith having a really rough start to the season. Hold on. But the Oilers weren't a good 5-on-5 scoring team last year, and they're not a good 5-on-5 scoring team this year. So I will shout out DeSmith, but I think for me, it'd be Gustafsson or Sorokin for the expensive goalies. But it is the cheaper goalies I do like better. Like you mentioned, Dostal. I think he's very much in play here. Igor Shesterkin. He's very much in play at home to Carolina. And, Connor Hellebuck is 7,600 on the road against the Los Angeles Kings. Like, I think Hellebuck at 7,600 makes a lot of sense. So, like, I don't mind Gustafsson at 8,400. It's like if he's the last guy in your lineup and you have 8,400 to spend, I have no problem with that. But I do think between like Dostal, Igor, Hellebuck, there are some cheaper goalies that are playable here tonight.
Yep. We should be back tomorrow unless the GPPs are absolute turducken. But who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Slipping Sammy Reinhart tonight.
There you go. Frostback punching air. I'll live on Narrative Street because I would love to see it and see Buffalo suffer one more time. JJ Peterka.
Fair enough.
But we'll see you for sure Thursday, probably tomorrow. Good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll see you in the Discord. Lots of news.
Good luck tonight, everyone.